we go.
So far, we've talked about many things regarding the new Avengers movies. However, we never fully knew what Doctor Doom, the main villain of the films, actually wanted. Of course, there's nothing surprising about that, because until Avengers Infinity War came out, even though we had seen Thanos in many different productions, his true purpose was never explained either. We only saw Doctor Doom in a single mid-credits scene, and nothing more. However, an account that has shared correct information before made an interesting post. It said that the events that will happen in Avengers Doomsday will stem from what Steve Rogers did in Endgame, and added, "If I heard correctly," before explaining that Doom's goal is to take revenge on Steve. If this rumor is true, we're seriously going to see something like Civil War II. Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, exactly 10 years later, will once again face each other in the same movie and fight to the death. There are some very interesting parts to this statement. First of all, the things Steve Rogers did in Endgame will be explained by the Russo brothers and made official, because according to the information given in Endgame, changing the past did not affect the existing timeline. For example, going back and killing baby Thanos would not change what Thanos did. Professor Hulk himself said this. Doing that would only create a new timeline where Thanos died as a baby. Therefore, it was impossible for Steve Rogers to go back in time, live with Peggy Carter, and then return in the future as an old man. To do this, he would have had to change universes. We know that what Steve Rogers did and what happened in Endgame caused different events across the multiverse. In fact, in one of the TVA scenes, they even showed Peggy Carter being caught and interrogated in the background. Normally, the TVA described the time heist in Endgame as something that was supposed to happen. In other words, everything in the timeline was supposed to be in order. Especially now that the filming is currently happening at the house where Steve and Peggy lived, and even Peggy Carter's car has been brought in. It confirms that they will shoot many scenes in that area. At the end of Endgame, we know that Steve Rogers had to return the Infinity Stones. Marvel was even considering releasing a mini-series about Captain America, returning the stones just so they could connect it to Doomsday's script. The reason for this is most likely the importance of the stones in the multiverse system. For example, in the timeline where he returned the Power Stone, Thanos and his army were completely erased. However, the whole matter of returning the stones is very complicated, because so far the TVA had pruned all of these branches. Time is an endlessly continuing loop. Just as Loki broke out as a variant, there could have been many different stories we don't even know about. Doctor Doom will be the enemy of everyone who damages the multiverse system. At first, I thought he would target characters like Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, or Scarlet Witch. But when you look at the bigger perspective, the things Steve Rogers did were not normal either. After all, they painfully experienced in the film that time should not be tampered with. Despite this, something that could upset the balance of the multiverse may have occurred. It's worth noting that most of the great disasters that occur in the multiverse happen as a result of the butterfly effect. I didn't quite understand how this event directly connects to Doom's family. After all, Doctor Doom is a character who will come from the Fantastic Four's world. I think Doctor Doom will go after Steve Rogers, but not because he is responsible for his family's death. It will be because Steve Rogers broke the laws of time. Doctor Doom resembling Tony Stark in appearance will likely surprise Steve Rogers. These two had reconciled in Avengers Endgame. They had said that they trusted each other. The Russo brothers will both focus on topics that were left unexplored in previous films and tell a new story. Looking at it from this angle, I actually say it's a good thing they gave the Doomsday and Secret Wars films to the Russo brothers. Because just like in the older films, the stories that were explored previously will be tied into the new ones. If you remember, there was a time when Marvel completely ignored the topics explored in earlier films. They literally ghosted their own movies. What they're doing to Eternals right now is exactly that. Imagine there's a character played by Angelina Jolie who exists in the universe and travels in space. I can understand them not showing some of the Eternals because they are in Arishem's hand. But Eternals was completely ghosted. People who don't follow Marvel as closely as we do think everything progresses properly because the films are released under the control of a single person. At least having certain series handled by specific directors strengthens the connection between the stories. As a result, there are also questions like, will Doctor Doom actually kill our Steve? And if he does manage to kill him, what will happen to old Steve? Normally, changing the past should not change the future. In the Marvel universe, killing someone in the past does not kill them in the future. but instead creates a new universe. That's why it would be a bit silly for Doctor Doom to personally seek revenge on someone. If Doctor Doom searching for Steve is noticed by Loki, it's possible that Loki could save Steve and include him in his own team this way. Because Steve will be a part of the team that Loki will form. At least, that's what the situation seems to show right now. Now, the main thing they probably want us to think about here is the butterfly effect. As it was said in the last Spider-Verse film, a small fracture can cause an infinite ripple effect. Of course, we call this the domino effect. If one universe strays from the line it's supposed to follow, it can block or collide with another, and as a result, only one of them will survive. The things Steve or Stark did may have caused a result that harmed Doom, and it cannot be said that Stark is innocent in this matter either, because the discovery that completed the time machine was actually made by Tony Stark. If Tony Stark hadn't tested the Mobius strip in the film, it would have been impossible for the Avengers team to travel through time. The conclusion I draw from all these events is this. We're going to watch a film that has very strong connections to Avengers Endgame, and in fact directly continues Endgame's story. The results of what both Tony Stark and Captain America did, in other words, everything they all did, such as time travel, will unfold. Very heavy prices will be paid. Normally, Avengers means the ones who avenge. That is, the side taking revenge was always the Avengers team. But now, things seem to have completely changed. As a result of the actions taken by the Avengers and the other Avengers teams from different universes, now it looks like revenge will be taken on the Avengers. For example, you all probably know King Thanos' story by now. When Thanos came to the future at the end of Endgame, he was going to kill the Avengers team and turn into someone without a purpose. He even thought about recreating the universe. The emergence of the King Thanos character was based on the time heist in Endgame, even if it was in a parallel universe. Similarly, Loki reaching the head of the TVA was also due to the time heist in Endgame. Therefore, it's certain that most of the people said to be in Doctor Doom's team will be victims of the time heist in Endgame. If the time heist in Endgame had never happened, there wouldn't even be such a thing as the multiverse. Because the Avengers team didn't accept their fate, they broke the rules and became heroes. Now, the victims of this situation will not accept their fate either. They will break the rules, and they will become enemies. Actually, this is similar to Wanda's speech in Multiverse of Madness. She told Strange, "You broke the rules and became a hero, but I broke them and became the enemy." She was referring to Strange looking into the future to win. Of course, there will definitely be those who say, "But why is someone like Steve so important?" After all, compared to Doctor Doom, Steve Rogers is quite a simple character. At the end of the day, just a super soldier. I mean, in Marvel, 1 out of every 10 people you see on the street already has superpowers. What puts Steve into this plan is that he did more than just save the day. Unlike the others, Steve broke the laws of time by thinking only of himself. If we look at it from the perspective of the Secret Wars comics, the fight between Iron Man and old Captain America was also legendary. They fought tooth and nail against each other, and in the end, Iron Man won, but both of them died. Then, when the universe restarted, everything was fixed. By the way, what does Marvel think about old Captain America? We still don't know, because among the versions of Captain America that we'll see in the film, the old one wasn't mentioned. Even the scenes being filmed now will show the past. In other words, Steve's prime years. I expect Marvel to show the same effort to highlight Iron Man as they're doing with Captain America. Even if they don't push Iron Man to the forefront, I think they still need to bring him back. I expect them to bring the original Iron Man from Earth 616 back from the past to the present. If Doctor Doom were to go back and find Steve, he could convince him that he was Tony Stark. This way, he could try to trick him and then lure him into a trap. Most likely, Loki will want to prevent this. Because Doctor Doom doesn't just suddenly start a war and take revenge. First, he uses the person for his own purposes. Then, he tortures them and takes revenge. In the comics, he once tricked Iron Man by saying, "We need to stop a threat from Hell." Then, he delivered Iron Man to Mephisto in Hell and escaped. So, Doom won't just act like an ordinary person and try to kill Steve directly. First, he'll play around with him, twist him, and then show his true face. But in the movie, Loki probably won't allow this. In fact, I even think that this scene with Peggy Carter being brought into the TVA may have been done to protect Steve's family. Because if Loki only takes Steve, then Doom could threaten him with his family. So they might have brought his family into the TVA to protect them. Of course, we shouldn't look at everything negatively. If Peggy and Steve have children, which they surely must, he would never go on a journey alone without taking them with him. By the way, in the Deadpool and Wolverine film, Channing Tatum appeared as Gambit and filmed a fight scene in Doctor Doom. During filming, the actor broke his leg. Now, he can't appear as Gambit in the shoots, and a large part of his scenes have been filmed with his stunt double instead. Also, I want to clarify a small matter I mentioned at the beginning of the video. According to the leaked set photos from Avengers Doomsday, I had told you earlier that Steve Rogers would have a child. They won't show this child in the film for no reason. Steve's child will also be a super soldier, just like his father. This character, known as James Rogers, will be introduced as the new Captain America in the films that come after Secret Wars. This is a very positive development for those who don't like Sam Wilson or don't accept him as Captain America. Even if Chris Evans isn't Captain America after Secret Wars, his son will continue his legacy. In fact, right now, there's already a character in the MCU, even in the world, who is a descendant of Steve Rogers, but that hasn't yet been made official. Yes, friends, I hope you enjoyed the content I've prepared. If there are other videos you'd like to see, don't forget to write them in the comments. That's it from me for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.